S3 update. A lot's been done. Yeah, we're already into race season. It's still not driving yet, but the engine's in. Where we left off, I guess, was finishing up the long block, had it all timed up and closed up. And then I think we were just kind of hanging the turbo to see how things would look. Since then, we've done a lot. I guess the next step was the transmission. We did get a DQ500 from Europe. They come in the RS3s or the TTRS. That took a while to get here. We had the bell housing machined to mate up to the VR6 because typically they don't mate to the VR6. They're made for the 2.5 liters. Didn't really do much to the transmission. Kind of took it apart, looked at the clutches just to see what kind of condition it was in because it is a used transmission. For now, we're gonna start with stock clutches and just kind of see how far we can push those. Ordered a VR6 flywheel for it. We had to do some clearancing on the flywheel side because the main girdle that we installed was hitting the flywheel. So we had to grind down a bunch of stuff to make it work properly, but that's all good now. So back of the engine, turbo manifold, we had that ceramic coated. And then I did a bunch of heat shielding around it and the turbo itself. The wastegate we're going with is kind of an older style 38 mil Turbo Smart wastegate, flange style, not V-band. Just because of the type of turbo manifold that we have, it didn't have a provision for one or the other, and the V-band style really wasn't going to work for us. It had a spot where the wastegate exhaust gases come out, but it didn't have any provisions or anything to mount anything there. I kind of designed a little flange for it that mounts to the turbo manifold, and then we can mount our wastegate on top of that. Took a bit of messing around because I'm not a professional at these things. Drawing on Fusion 360, not a pro at that. It took 6 or 7 different revisions of that piece, but finally got it cut out of steel, and it's all good now. Intake manifold, we're just going with a cast aluminum short runner intake manifold. Just ended up spray bombing that black for now. We're running a RS3 throttle body, so a big throttle body. We've got an MPI rail going into the manifold. I think they're 2000 cc injectors. I could be wrong. We might have to double check that one. I guess just more engine assembly, got the high pressure rails on, high pressure injectors in. We're not running a traditional oil filter housing. We're just running an IABED one. It's billet aluminum. It's nice and compact. It allows you to use the spin-on filter. A bit easier to work with and maintain. I think that's pretty much it for the engine transmission building side of things. For mounts, we used transmission side, we had to use a mount from an RS3. It works because they're both 8V Audis. It mounts to the frame rail the same, and the RS3 mount works with the DQ500, obviously. Engine side mount, we kind of had to play around with that. Older VR6 mounts don't mount to the MQB frame that well. We ended up going with a Atlas 3.6 VR6 mount, and because they're pretty much the same chassis style, it works, it puts the engine in the right spot. It's a bit teeny tiny, so I don't know how well that will work with a lot of power, but it's got the engine hanging in there, and we'll see how it does. Other than that, dog bone mount, we had to swap to an RS3 style one because the 2-liter one was just too big and actually didn't reach far enough to get to the bottom of the transmission. So we ordered a CTS, their big race intercooler for the RS3 and the tubular kind of crash bar that goes with it. We bought this knowing it was meant for an RS3, but we were like, oh, maybe we can make it work. Turns out we need a RS3 rad support, which we're working on getting now, because the RS3s, their intercoolers actually mount on the outside of the rad support and not inside with the radiator like the S3 does. So the rad support we have won't work. Until we get our hands on one of those, we can't put the front end on the car yet. But some other exterior stuff we did get polycarbonate windows. I want to say they're 4mm thick for all 4 doors and the rear glass. And we saved about 50% of the weight of glass windows by putting those in. I can't remember off the top of my head what the actual weight savings was, but it was fairly significant for just replacing windows. Reese designed a bit of a drag wing for the back of the car. Turned out pretty good, actually. We'll see how it works, but it looks cool. What else? I mean, in terms of firing the car up, it's basically just getting the harness, the rad support, and all the plumbing done, well, and fuel system. It's still a long way to go. But we're making progress. The biggest roadblock for us was probably just lead time on parts. A lot of stuff we sourced from overseas, supplier delays, shipping delays. You know, it took me a month to get my hands on a flywheel, so we couldn't even get the transmission mounted up. That's probably the hardest part right now. Dealing with RS3 parts, there's not a lot of, you know, these cars in wreckers or places you can buy used parts for them. And we don't want to buy everything brand new because that's extremely expensive. Finding parts and getting them in our hands is the biggest hurdle so far. Hopefully, the next time you see a video, it'll be of this thing firing up and running. Hopefully. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think it's pretty sound. When you open it, you can hear him.
Do the Austin Powers scene, or I mean, Ace Ventura.
It's like, ah!